Hi all, this is the fourth video in this series of integrating Syncfusion components into an ASP.NET Core MVC project. Here we'll be demonstrating the Syncfusion components like DropdownList and Datepicker by creating a form for the transaction entity. So that's enough with the category controller. Let's create a controller for the transaction entity and let's do the correct operations like we have done here. So we'll be following the same procedures. So first of all, let me create the transaction controller. Select the transaction model and I will name this controller as transaction controller. Now click on add. So here we have the transaction controller created through the scaffolding mechanism and hence it has the default action methods. Now to implement the correct operations, we'll be only using the action methods like we have used inside this category controller here. So first of all, I will remove the extra action methods here. We don't need this details action method. We'll be renaming this create action methods into add or edit in a bit. Now let's remove this edit, post and get action methods. We don't need this. We don't need this get, delete action method. And this function will not be used. So let me get rid of that. Now let's rename this action method to add or edit like we have done with the category controller. Now let's make the corresponding modifications inside the views folder here. So here we have the folder transaction. We don't need these views, delete, details and edit. Let me rename this view here to add or edit. Okay, that's enough. Now let's build this project and back to the view. Sorry, something went wrong. Sorry, I accidentally removed the folder for controllers. So go to the recycle bin. So here we have the folder. Let's restore it. Back to the Solution Explorer. Here we have the controllers folder. Let's build the project again. Now let's navigate into the transaction controller. So here we have the index view of the transaction controller. First of all, let's correct the heading part here. So let me copy paste these view data from the category index view into the transaction index view. Page title will be transactions. Page action text will be new transaction. Okay, and here we have the corresponding action URL transaction/add or edit. And let's get rid of these extra hyperlinks here. Build the project, back to the view. Okay, that's it. As you can see, this header part is already designed inside the layout view that you can see here. So here we have the layout view and inside this div we have designed the header that we have just modified. And the dynamic values that we want to apply is passed from the corresponding view index. Okay. Now let's start with the transaction form here. So this is the default form with the Bootstrap UI. Now let's replace them with Syncfusion alternatives. So back to the add or edit view of the transaction controller. First of all, let's get rid of this heading part here. Now let me move this category add or edit along with the transaction add or edit. So here we have the view data that we have passed from the category form. Let's copy paste this into the add or edit view here. So basically here we are trying to dynamically provide the page title based on the primary key. In case of this view, transaction ID is the primary key. If it is equal to 0, the title will be create new transaction. If transaction ID is a non-zero value, then the title will be edit transaction. Now let's compare this add or edit view with the category here. First of all, we have applied this class called MD7. So let's apply the same class here. Now the form will be wrapped with a div like this. Let me collapse this form. And after the form, we have displayed a font awesome icon just to fill up the space. So I will just copy paste the same div into the transaction form here. Let me duplicate this and let's open the category form. Okay. Now let's apply a font awesome icon like this. So here we have the corresponding font awesome icon. Let's build the project. Sorry, here we have the error object reference not set to the instance. We forgot to pass a fresh instance inside the add or edit action method. For now, let's pass the fresh instance of the transaction here. Let's build the project, reload the view. Now let me get rid of this back to list hyperlink. So here it is. Now let's replace these controls one by one with Syncfusion components. Before that, I think it would be better to switch the background color between these two widget divs here. Same in case of this category form. So here we have the transaction add or edit view. The background color of this div is applied from this custom CSS, and that of the second div widget, the background is applied with this style attribute here. Here the background applied inside the widget class is overridden with the style here. In order to switch the background color, we just need to move this style attribute to the form widget here. That's it. Now let me do that for the category add or edit view also. Build the project, back to the view. Boom, that's it. I think this is better because this background gives more attention to the form here. Let's reload the view. Now first of all, I want to replace the date picker here. So back to the transaction add or edit view. Here we have the form. First of all, let me replace the form groups with the bootstrap class that we have applied inside the view here, which is MV3. So I will do this. Open the find and replace window. For that, you can use this shortcut, hold Ctrl, then press F, find form group class, and let's replace them with MV3. Make sure we have selected current document. Now click on this replace all button. Now here we have the date picker. Let me drag and drop this here so that it will become the first element inside the form. Now let me remove this input label combination. Now back to the Syncfusion documentation here, you could see the component date picker. So this is the component that we are going to use. With the given documentations here, you can customize the component as per your requirement. So let me copy paste this into our project. ID will be date. We have not yet implemented the validation. We will do that once we completed with the correct operations of this transaction. Now, like we have done inside this category add or edit view, we'll be mapping the corresponding model with the property here EJS4. We have done the same for all of the controls inside the category form. Now let's do that for this component here EJS4. So here we have the transaction model. Inside that we have the property date, and we'll be mapping the component into this property. Let's add the placeholder. It will act as a label for the component. And also we have to set this property as always float label type. Now there is a property for this date picker component, which is format. With that we can specify the date format that we want to show inside the component. So it will be MMM, meaning the abbreviation of the month, then date, and then the last 2 digits from the year. So this is how the component looks like. I think this is more than what we need. The default value of this date property is already assigned inside our model here. So that's what we are seeing by default. If you want to customize the component as per your requirement, you can go through the documentation here. There are plenty of customizations available. Just go through them. Now we have to find a Syncfusion component for this category ID. As of now, we already have a collection of categories here. We just need to show them inside a drop-down list here. And once we select a category, the corresponding category ID will be passed to this property category ID. So go back to the documentation here. Here we have the component DropdownList. We'll be doing some customizations on this component because I always concerned about DropdownList in any of my projects. So first of all, let me copy paste this component. Let's get rid of these category ID controls and let's replace them. First of all, the ID DDL, meaning drop-down list for category. Now let's map this component to the category ID property from the model. Now we have to provide a data source, meaning we have to pass a collection of options to be shown inside the component. The detailed documentation is explained inside this data binding session. So first of all, from our transaction component, we'll be returning a collection of categories. Okay. For that, I will be creating a new method, and this is not an action, so we have to mark them with the attribute a non-action method, not something that can receive requests like these action methods here. Okay, so here we go, populate categories. So here we have a variable category collection. In order to retrieve all of the categories that we have, we already have the auto suggestion from the Visual Studio. So in order to use them, just use the tab. So basically we are using the DB context. From that we have the categories DB set. It will return all of the categories that we have from our category table. Now I just want to convert this into a C# list. So toList function can be called. So all of the categories that we have inserted into the corresponding table will be there inside this collection here. Now along with that, for a drop-down list, we need a default first option. So here we have an object of the category model as default category. Let's create a new instance of the class and let's populate the corresponding properties. Category ID will be 0, and then the title, it will be choose a category. Now let's insert this default category into this collection here. So this will be inserted at the 0th index, meaning the first element inside the collection. Now let's save this into the view bag with the key categories. So with this function, we have just saved the collection of categories into the view bag. Now let's call this function inside the add or edit get action method here. Let me replace this default view data here, which is also returning the collection of categories. Instead of that, we will do this. Now let me copy this view bag and let's apply them into the component here. Add view bag. Let's build this project and back to the view. So here we have the drop down. If you expand the drop down, you could see some ghost options without showing any text. So there are some customizations left. First of all, we need a placeholder which is to be shown as a label. And let's float the placeholder. Now inside these options, we have to specify which property that we want to show inside the text and which is the corresponding option value. For that, we can use this sub tag from the component eDropdownList field. Category ID will be treated as the option value. So this property must be there inside the data source that we have applied here. Okay, and inside the option, we want to show the property title. So we can use this property text. Now let's check whether it is working or not. Boom, that's it. Now instead of the property category title, we are going to use this property here, title with icon, so that we can also see the corresponding icon which is more pleasant on the eye. So let's replace that here. That's it. Now let's add the provision for filtering options from this component here, which is explained inside the documentation here under filtering. For that, initially we just need to set this property allow filtering as true. Now if you expand the drop down, you could see a search box here. So let me try travel. It's not working because these options are having an emoji. So in order to avoid this problem, we can set this property ignore accent as true. And also set the filter type as contains. Now it is working properly fine. Now if you want to limit the height of this pop-up here, we can set that with the property pop-up height. So that's all about the drop-down. Now let's replace this amount control here. By default, it is using a numeric text box. So let's use the corresponding alternative, which is numeric text box. So here is the component. So let me copy this and replace the same inside the view here. ID will be amount. Let's map the corresponding model property. And then here we have the placeholder. And let's set the float label type. Build the project, back to the view. So here we have the Syncfusion numeric text box. Here we have the up and down arrows. We should set the minimum value as 0. So that we can assign this property min with 0. And for formatting the amount, here we have the property format. Into that we can specify the format C0, meaning currency without a decimal point. So here it is. Here we have the formatted amount, and here we can't go below 0. So that's all about the numeric text box. Now let's replace this final input text field for note, which is just to enter the remarks or description of the transaction. It will be a normal text box like we have used inside the categories form here, like this title. So let's copy paste the corresponding component from the form. Let's get rid of these default HTML elements, and here it is. This is for note. Placeholder will be note, and the corresponding property mapping is to the property note. So this will be a normal text box. We want to make it a multi-line text box for entering multiple line descriptions. For that we have to set this property multi-line. Let's try whether it is working or not. So that's all about the form controls. Now let's replace this submit button here. That I will copy paste from this category form. So here we have the category add or edit view, and let's copy paste this button. So here we have designed the form as per our requirement. Now when we submit this form data will be posted to this action method create, which was the default action method. We have changed that into add or edit. Now let's check what we have inside the action method add or edit of the type post. So this will be enough for the insert operation. So if the model is valid, the insert operation will be happen and we will be redirected to the index view. If not, the same view will be returned with the validation errors, and here again the collection of categories is returned for populating the dropdown. Instead of this, we can make use of this function here. Validation of these entities, transaction and category will be done later. For now, let me tell you this. This property category of the type category is added as a navigational property just to form a foreign key between these two entities, category and transaction. So during the validation, we will get a validation error for this navigational property, because while posting data from this form will not be posting values for this property category. Only these properties will be binded. So in order to ignore validating this navigational property here, we will make this property as nullable by just adding this question mark at the end. Now let's build this project and let's check whether the insert operation is working or not. When we start using an expense tracker application, first of all, we will be entering the cash, that is what we have currently. Or you could say cash in hand, and I have added a category here, open balance. Let's enter the amount here, say 10,000, and here we have the description cash in hand. And let's set the date, 1st January of this year. Submit the form. Boom, that's it. So here we have successfully created a transaction. Now we'll be replacing this table with Syncfusion grid after the edit operation here. First of all, we have to change this hyperlink text action method to add or edit. So here we have the index view of transaction to add or edit. Now this hyperlink will make a GET request to the add or edit action method of the transaction controller here. Currently this action method will return a fresh form for the insert operation. Now to incorporate the edit operation, first of all we'll be adding an ID parameter. By default its value will be 0. If ID is equal to 0, then we have an insert operation. Else we have an update operation, so we have to return the form with the corresponding values populated inside the form. For that, I will just duplicate this line and let's move it over here. Let's copy paste the similar statement from the category controller. Here we have transactions DB set. So here we are returning the corresponding transaction record for the given ID. So let's build this project and back to the view, and let's test this edit hyperlink here. That's it. Now inside this form, like we have done with the category, we need to add one more input hidden field for the primary key, like we have done with the category here. This hidden field is added just to return the value of the primary key when we submit the form. So let me copy this and pasting over here inside the transaction form. Name will be transaction ID, and let's modify this property accordingly. Now let's update the post action method add or edit for the update operation. Inside the action method, we already implemented the insert operation. The insert operation will be happened if the primary key is 0. So here we go, transaction ID if it's equal to 0, else we'll do the update operation. Context dot update transaction. That's it. Build this project and let's check whether the update operation is working or not. Let's change this amount to 12 grants, submit the form. Boom, that's it. Now let's deal with the transaction grid. It is almost similar to the grid that we have inside the categories here. We don't want to go through the same explanation again, so I will copy paste the code from this grid into this transaction index view. And we'll be explaining things that are new to the transaction grid. So here we have the category index. So here we have the entire bootstrap row. Inside the first column we have the grid, and inside the second column we have this phone awesome icon. Actually, instead of this background color, I will use the background color from the widget class that is applied here. Okay, now let me copy this entire row and let's paste that inside the transaction index here. we'll be using the same font over some icon that is used for the transaction form. So let me copy paste this. Now let's deal with this grid here. ID will be transactions. Let me move this tab along with this transaction controller here. From this index action method, we are returning a collection of the transactions that we have inside the table. And we are assigning the same into this data source property. We need to show the grid as it is, so these properties regarding the appearance of the component will be as it is. Now let's modify these columns here. First of all, we want to show the category of the transaction. So here we have the transaction model. Regarding category, we have this category ID and this navigation property category. There is no category title as it is. So let's add a not mapped property, which is of the type nullable string, category title with icon. Along with the title, we need the corresponding category icon. Inside the property, we only need the get accessor. Inside that, we will return a string after the ternary operator. So first of all, we will check whether the category is null or not. If it is null, we'll be returning an empty string. Otherwise, we will concat the category icon with the category title. In between them, we need a white space. Now let me explain how this works. Let's check the transaction controller index action method. In order to retrieve the list of transactions, we only need to retrieve the corresponding dbset transactions. Now what does this function does is, for each transaction we have, based on the category ID, corresponding category record details will be fetched into this navigational property category. And that's what we are using inside this get accessor here. There will be situations when category navigational property is null. In that case, we will return empty string. Otherwise, we will concat those two properties. Let me copy this property name and let's use that inside this grid, inside the first column. Okay, so the header text will be category. Inside that, we'll be showing the category title with the icon. As a second column, we want to show the date of transaction. So field is equal to date as it is. And let's set the width accordingly. And then here we have an actions column. Before that, we need the amount. So let me duplicate this column here. This is for amount. Instead of directly providing the amount property from this model, if the transaction is of the type an expense, we'll be showing the prefix minus, and that of income will be plus amount. For that, I will create another not map property. For that, I will just copy paste this property here. Formatted amount. First of all, we need to decide the prefix plus or minus based on the type of transaction. Into that, we'll be concatenating the amount, and let's format that into our currency. So here we have the corresponding format type C0, currency without decimal. Now inside this ternary expression, we have to decide the prefix. So here we have the condition. I will wrap the condition again in another pair of parentheses. If category is equal to null or category type is equal to expense, then the prefix will be hyphen or a minus symbol, and let's append a white space here. Else, plus will be used as the prefix. Okay, now let me copy this property and let's use that here. For now, let me comment this actions column. Let's build this project and back to the view. Boom, that's it. As you can see, the date is not in proper format. We can fix that in a bit. Before that, let me add few more transactions so that we can understand how this grid looks like with real-time transactions. So let me go to the new transaction window and I will be adding few transactions here. So finally, I have made 10 transactions. In order to see them all at once, I will change the page size to 10. So all of the features that we have discussed with the category grid will also work here. Paging is working and you can sort these columns accordingly. Now let's format this date column here. For that, we can make use of this property format. M DDY. And along with this, we have to specify the type as date, not type of type. In order to align the data inside these columns, we can make use of this property text align. Let it be left. And let's align this amount column here to right. Now let's add the final column for actions. For that, let me uncomment this column here. Inside this category grid, we have used a template with this script tag here. I will be copying the same into the transaction grid. So here it is. ID as action column template. Same is assigned here. First of all, we have a button for the edit operation. Here we only need to change the name of the controller. And this primary key also, transaction ID. And here we have the form for the delete operation. And let's assign this action attribute accordingly. Everything else can be kept as it is. Let's build this and back to the view. That's it. Now let's try to update this transaction. Let's change this amount from 250 to 300. Submit the form. So here it is. Now if we click on this submit button for the delete operation, it will take us to the corresponding post action method delete here. There is nothing to change. The default code will do the same as we have done inside the category controller. Now in order to check the delete operation, let me add one more transaction. Submit the form. You could see the newly added transaction inside the second page. Now let's delete this, confirm the operation. Boom, that's it. There is no second page. Now finally, inside these forms for transaction and the category, we have to implement the form validation. So first of all, let's start with the category. First of all, we have to provide validation rules inside the model category here. Here we only have one validation rule, which is for this property title. So in order to submit a category form, user must provide a value for this property title. For that, we can use this attribute required, and inside that we can provide the error message. Now back to the corresponding form, which is add or edit for category. Now along with the Syncfusion component, here we have the default span. It is there by default from the scaffolding mechanism. Okay, so if there is any validation error regarding this title property, it will be shown inside the span. And here let me change the font size with the bootstrap class like this. Now let's get rid of the remaining span for validation. These are not required inside the form. So in this project, I'm only implementing the server-side validation. So let me comment this line so that we can disable the client-side validation. Now you can go through their documentation for client-side validation. Let's search for validation here. You could see how validation can be done in various components. For example, let's check this documentation here. So here we have a form with the form controls. And using the JavaScript code, they are specifying the rules for the validation. So if you want to implement the client-side validation, please go through these documentations. Now back to our project. Let's try to submit this form without a title. Boom. So here we have the validation error message. Now let's implement the same inside this transaction form also. Open corresponding model transaction. First of all, we have the category ID. So it should not be 0. So there should be a value selected from this drop down here. This is invalid. We should select an option other than this default option here. For that, we can make use of this attribute range. And here we have the minimum value. And here we have the maximum value, that of integer. And let's specify the error message. Please select a category. Now we have to have a similar validation for the property amount. So let me copy paste that here. Amount should be greater than 0. Now let's open the transaction add or edit form. So here we have the drop down for category. Now let me copy this span from here for the drop down. So the validation error for the property category ID will be shown here. And let's apply the extra class fs6. There is no validation for the date picker by default. Current date will be selected. So let me remove this span from here. Validation error regarding amount will be shown here. Let's add the extra class fs6. There is no validation regarding note. And let's comment this script session here. Build the project, back to the view. Let's try to create a new transaction. Submit the form. So here we have those validation error messages. So that's all about the validation. Again, if you want to implement the client-side validation, you can go through the documentation that I have shown here. If we get into that, the tutorial will be even lengthy. So I will leave that up to you as a practice. In next video, we'll be making a beautiful dashboard with Syncfusion chart elements. For more awesome videos like this, please consider subscribing to this channel Code Affection if you haven't yet. If you found this video helpful, please like and share this video with your friends and colleagues.